Welcome back to the programme. As I said, if I don't get through all the texts, dozens upon dozens of texts, 083 3333 975, text or WhatsApp. If I don't get through them all today, my apologies. Damien, most chemists will work with the surgeries in relation to data protection. A form can be signed by the person to have the prescription sent to the chemists, and that clears data protection. I did this for my dad. Hope this will help some elderly people. It may save them the trip to collect off the prescription from your doctor, and that is from Ted. So, if you have prescriptions that you need collecting, and you normally get them from the doctor, you've heard it there, they can send it to the chemist, to the pharmacist. Just ring them, and maybe you have to sign a letter. You may have to go and sign a letter regarding data protection. Now, regarding our competition, Give Me a Break, GIMME, Give Me a Break, and it's a competition to win a lovely 2-night breakaway with breakfast and 1 evening meal for 2 at the Park Nasilla Resort and Spa in Kerry. And you can do it, I think, as far as I know, you can hold on to it for a full year, which will be great. So if you want to hang on to that after this little serious situation abates. It's originally the original Irish hotels are giving us this lovely prize. Text us in, please. Damien, what precautions are supermarkets taking in wiping down baskets and trolleys? Are they going to be wiped down? Damien, well done on your interview with the Minister for Justice. It was done in a very professional manner. It is worrying all the same. Some of the things that the government has been doing are not doing. A few people criticising the government for not doing enough. Damien, I think our government is handling this badly. There should be more done. Damien, what is going to be done regarding people coming back from Cheltenham? Should they all be swabbed? Damien, just an idea for WLR to get behind possibly 18 to 25-year-olds who are healthy, maybe of use to the HSE as volunteers to help out with the coronavirus. Damien, the only thing that people can control in this situation is what they do themselves. In other words, make sure that you do all the personal hygiene. I was in a supermarket yesterday. I watched a woman get within an inch of a child's face and rubbing her cheek. More needs to be done regarding personal hygiene matters. Damien, I am working with the HSE in the community as a community care assistant, and as with a lot of our colleagues, we're very nervous and anxious at the time. Most of our clients would have maybe 6 different carers going into their homes every day. That's going to be a huge problem if this does become a community spread virus. Damien, there's 2 suspected cases in Kilkenny, but they won't release any information to the public. Speaking of pharmacists, our reporter here, Emer McKeown, has been to Mulligan's Pharmacy, and she's been talking to Kate Mulligan about their experience so far regarding COVID-19, people buying hand sanitisers, demand for drugs, interactions with the public and the best advice. Here is Emer's report.
So I'm here in Mulligan's drive-through pharmacy on the Dunmore Road with Kate Mulligan, a pharmacist here. Kate, I had a look at your counter. It seems to be stocked up with Calpol and ibuprofen, and there's a lot of fear and a lot of rumours that patients mightn't be able to access them or stocks might decline. What's your opinion as a pharmacist?
Hi, Emer. Yes, we have plenty supply of all of those for now. The directive coming from the powers that be is not to stockpile, because it's going to put untold pressure on the supply chain, and then everybody could end up with problems down the road. But for now, like all pharmacies, have more than adequate supplies for the increased need that's coming down the track. Children's medicines are not going to be an issue because children don't actually contract the virus. So we don't anticipate there being like a huge surge in Calpols and, Nurofen for children. But for adults, for now, we would have plenty of supply, and we would also have plenty of supply for the cold and flu meds that you will need to treat the symptoms if somebody does become symptomatic.
Are people coming in panicking and looking for extra stock?
Absolutely, yeah. There is quite a bit of hysteria out there, but we would have, customers who want to get multiple supplies of their prescriptions. The IPU have said we cannot dispense multiple dispensings because it will, as I have said, it will create problems down the line in the supply chain. But we have adequate stocks to fulfil everybody's prescriptions for the next few months. That's not going to be an issue. So there doesn't need to be kind of a hysterical reaction to what is, a scary thing that's happening when you look at Italy and, you look at, the shutdown in China and in other countries. It is frightening for people, but what people really need to kind of remain calm and realise that, once you know it's not airborne, so you can't contract it simply by touching an object that's contaminated. You can contract it by touching an object that's contaminated and then putting your hand to your mouth. So if everybody could observe not touching their face, that really helps to stop the spread. So because you're not going to be able to wash your hands or sanitize your hands every time you touch something, the thing is to just not touch your face. If you don't transmit it to your mouth, it can't get to your lungs. So it'll get to your lungs by either going via the mouth, the nose. I'm not so sure about the eyes, but if you can just keep your hands away from your face.
So as you said, there is a bit of hysteria. You and your staff here, are they seeing that on the ground with people coming in and the hand sanitizer?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, hand sanitizers, we completely sold out in less than 24 hours at the weekend of a fairly sizable delivery that we would have received on Friday afternoon, all gone by Saturday lunchtime. So there is hysteria about the hand sanitizer, and the supply chain of that has already been affected because it's been stockpiled by the HSE for hospitals, understandably so. But what's available to the retail market is sporadic. It's random. So we have block booked stock to come in. It was meant to arrive to our warehouse this afternoon. It should be there tomorrow. It will be in our stores tomorrow. And we seem to have secured enough stock ongoing that we're not going to be in the situation that we were in last Saturday, sold out of everything in 24 hours. But yeah, there is quite a hysterical demand for sanitizers and, sterilising wipes. And I guess like every business who has a reception desk wants to have a hand sanitising gel for people visiting their place of work. In all of our pharmacies, what we're doing is we're doing like a full sweep of the store every hour with a sanitising spray and just cleaning down all surfaces every hour. And we have been doing that for the last 2 weeks.
And you as pharmacists, really, you're at the front line and you're quite at risk because while some people mightn't be able to get an appointment with their GP, as most GPs, they're not closed, but you have to ring to make an appointment first. People can walk freely in to your business and potentially put your staff at risk. So I imagine you have some measures in place.
Well, the thing about it is the hospitals are going into shutdown, so they're discouraging anybody from calling and they're discouraging visitors from calling in to see people, patients in the hospital. Doctor surgeries are also discouraging people from going there only to present if they're seriously ill. They're not to present at all if they think they have COVID-19, and everybody's being told to go to their pharmacy. So there is huge pressure on us here in the pharmacy, and yes, we and all of our staff would be at a higher risk than others in the community. So we have hand sanitising gel inside our doors, and we're requesting that everybody sanitise their hands when they come into store. There will be as little handling of things between customer and staff as possible, and that will probably be something that's out there in the greater community in every business anyway. I mean, at the moment as it is, if you hand in a prescription to us, that prescription has to be signed by the person who's handing it in using a pen that we provide. That pen, is that going to get sterilised for the next person who's coming along behind them? So we are drawing up protocols at the moment. We're at kind of quite an advanced stage of that. So we will be putting measures in place to protect the customer as well as our staff, But the important thing is to remember, don't touch your face. So all of our staff know it doesn't matter if you touch a pen that somebody has touched that's contaminated. Once you don't touch your face and you wash your hands regularly, sanitize your hands regularly, once you do that, you're not going to contract the virus, So people do remember to be they have to remember to be cognizant of that.
And Kate, what about money? You're handling money here. Would there be a case of maybe potentially customers could only use card?
That's we had that discussion today now, and that's difficult probably to implement for a certain age group of customer. So we are going to, we would be strongly recommending that everybody try and do all of their transactions with card. That eliminates the possibility of a spread, it vastly reduces it, because like the dirtiest thing anybody can handle is money. So we would be strongly recommending that everybody uses cards in preference to cash, and we will have in-store signage in place to that effect. For those who can't and just want to use cash, we will be having to sanitize after every transaction like that, because you don't want the next person then who comes along behind somebody who's used cash wondering, oh, I wonder, is that staff member contaminated now because like they handled cash that's gone out to the person in front of me? So people will need to be vigilant about their hand hygiene, and that's really what it boils back to all the time.
How do you see this panning out? Would it be a case of pharmacies could be closed in the future and medicines would be dispensed out a window?
Well, unless we're in a situation where staff are not in a position to come into work because somebody in that small group of staff who work together within a small environment like a dispensary or, our shops, they're not huge. So if somebody contracts the virus, they're diagnosed with it and told to self-isolate, and others that they've been in contact with then have to self-isolate. We would hope not to obviously have to close any of our stores. That would be a very drastic measure. What we will be doing is encouraging people to use our drive-through, because there is such little interaction with other people. Like, we have a drive-through store here on the Dunmore Road. So in that scenario, you literally drive up to the window. You don't have to be getting a prescription to use this. So you can actually swing up and just get a deodorant or whatever it is that you need to buy. Or you can walk up to it. You don't even have to be in a car. It's called a drive-through, but you don't have to come into the shop. You can go to the window and you would be served there. So there's very little interaction there between, people. That now, this is in the event, I guess, that everything escalates and there is actually an outbreak. Hopefully we won't be faced with having to close stores. But we also would be encouraging people to use click and collect, so that then they don't have to spend much time in store. They can spend as little time as possible. So by doing click and collect, you go onto our site, you click what you want, you pre-book it. All you have to do then is literally call into whichever one of the stores you've opted for to collect your goods, and you literally just collect them. You're not going to be spending any great time there, So those two options are there.
So you really kind of have an advantage over other pharmacies. I imagine you already have the drive-through here, and there's the click and collect option as well. Because I imagine business might be doing well at the moment with the panic, but it could fall off.
Well, yeah, I'd say you're dead right there. Obviously, like every pharmacy is very, very busy at the moment, because between hand sanitising wipes, hand sanitisers, disposable gloves, people will need to stock up on paracetamol and ibuprofen, maybe some cold and flu meds, decongestant, certainly something for a dry cough, because that's one of the first symptoms. People should get thermometers. I actually would recommend everybody to have a thermometer in their home, because that's the one thing that you can just do every day very quickly, in the morning. If you think that you've been, in a situation or you're an at-risk patient, just take your temperature. If your temperature is elevated, it's time to wonder why. If it's not, you're good to go. So yeah, there is a demand at the moment on the pharmacies. They obviously are much busier than usual. But I think as people stock up and then they stop moving about, things could get very quiet. Yeah, things could get very quiet. But the click and collect and the drive-through are two advantages, I suppose, that we have over and above any pharmacy. But we would be promoting those really in the public interest. It's not that, we're trying to just get ahead of the posse or anything, but like just in public interest and public safety, stay away from people as much as possible. And if you're in, an area where there are people, you do need to stand a metre away from them, so all of those things need to be observed.
People trust their local pharmacy, and I imagine that people can ring you if they want some advice.
Well, the phones are already hopping. They're very, very busy. Now, we would have a few stores that customers are well used to phoning in advance. Number one, to check to see, do they have a prescription? Secondly, if they do, prepare it and have it ready. So people are in that frame of mind for a long time now, and those stores would be particularly busy with their phones. So throw onto that all the queries that are coming down the track, to do with what do I do, what if, or people who want to order their prescriptions in advance. Yes, it is advisable to do that. But I think everybody will have to be patient if phones aren't being answered, because, you know, there's like 1 or 2 phone lines in every shop, and if they're busy, they're busy. We're looking at various ways of, there's email, we're looking at an app, so we're still exploring options to make that process easier for people, you know, to get information from their pharmacy without having to come in to store. But it is going to be a problem, busy phone lines.
So the message is stay calm, practice good hand hygiene, avoid mass gatherings, phone your GP if you feel unwell, don't stockpile medicine.
You've just said it all there now. Good advice. Yeah.
Now, that is, thanks, Emer, for that report. And that was Kate, as I said there, from Mulligan's Pharmacy. Thank you, Kate, for that. There was a number of questions in about that. One question about the children. I think Kate may have said children don't get coronavirus. My understanding is that she meant to say children don't get it as bad, maybe, as some other people in different groups. As far as I understand, and we're going to have a doctor on tomorrow morning to talk about that, and we'll get clarification on that. According to a medical expert on the BBC, in the very early stages of the outbreak, children may be less likely to catch the virus. So that's the medical advice. Julie has just given me that, our producer. So we're going to have a doctor in the studio tomorrow to answer all the questions on that. So if you have any questions regarding specifically to GPs, please text us in 083 333 975. So again, in the early stages of the outbreak, from what has been seen across the world, children may be less likely to catch the virus. Dean, Maria, good morning.
Morning.
I will talk to you now in a minute, and we're going to talk about the measures that should be taken, I suppose, by religious groups, by churches, whether mass services, things go ahead. Let us know what you think. 083 333 975, text or WhatsApp. Now, keep your texts and your comments coming in. As I say, I may not get to every one of them this morning. We'll get to the competition in a little while. It's a weekend away with Park Nasilla. Dean Maria Jannsen, Dean of Christchurch Cathedral. Anything we say regarding these matters is to improve the information that gets out there to the public. So, for example, if I interview somebody on Medical Ward the 7 this morning, it's about who knows what and the information that's out there. So it's not in any way to spread panic. It's not in any way to upset people. It's
actually, information is power.
Information is power. And I can understand where the HSE come from, that they don't want to talk. But if somebody wants to talk about their own situation, they're fully entitled to. And, for example, somebody may want to talk about being in isolation. I know there's some people that have come back. I just got a text from somebody, some people in the southeast and Waterford area that have come back from Italy in the last week, just before the shutdown, and they're doing self-isolation at present. What's your experience with the hospital first?
Basically, I was visiting a parishioner on... I'm officially a chaplain.
You're a chaplain in the hospital.
Now, what that means is I get 127 quid twice a month, and it's taken from my salary by the church. That's actually what a chaplain is. So, you know, we as a team go in. Christine O'Dowd Smythe, Trevor Sargent and myself, we would have a pattern of visiting in the hospital. I'm on call. So if there's an emergency and God forbid somebody's dying, they ring me, I go. Somebody was very ill the other day. A husband texted me. I went in, new security at the hospital, and I said, "Is the virus here?" And the man said yes, and that was my first information. So there was new security. The hospital's in lockdown since December, and that's particularly hard on people who come down from Carlow and Kilkenny, who have long-term illnesses, whose family can't visit them. It's very frightening and lonely, and it's difficult for them. Anyway, that's my experience. I suppose my heart goes out to the staff, because there's no hiding place for them. They are deeply committed to their patients. And that's my first thought, is that the people in there who go into work every day and they don't know what they're meeting, they don't know if somebody is infected, they don't know the rate of infection. So I suppose that's my concern.
What are your concerns, or how are you dealing with the current situation regarding the Church of Ireland? OK,
Church of Ireland, I wrote to my bishop and I said, what are you recommending in the House of Bishop? And he said they are dependent on public policy makers and HSE for directions. I am responsible for 4 parishes here: Anstown, Tramore, the Cathedral Parish and Dunmore. A lot of the people who come to church are older, and a lot of people go to church when they're sick or when somebody in their family is sick and they want to pray for them. So churches actually, well, they're open doors to start off with, but a lot of the people in the community, in my experience, will be vulnerable. So I sat down yesterday morning and I said, and Trevor and I talked at length about this, and we made some serious decisions. We had a bunch of kids who were going up to Avoca Manor for a youth camp this weekend. We suggested they do not go, and our youth minister not go, and we pulled that. And since it has been pulled, we stopped our Sunday school. We have kids, and kids, they're like kittens in a box. They're all over each other. And we basically said, we're pulling Sunday school. We're pulling a toddler group in Tramore because we don't want any risk, because kids are very tactile and they'll give you a cuddle and they'll give me a cuddle and they'll give each other, they'll just be all over each other, and I don't want anybody at risk. So we pulled the youth group, the toddler group, the Sunday school group. We're going to do our confirmation preparation on Google School. It's safer to do it that. We have pulled the Friends of the Cathedral, who keep the cathedral open for the winter months. And, they're handling money, they're dealing with the public. I don't want them at risk. So we're closing the cathedral for business during the day. Now, people can come to worship, but the idea of going in and meeting the Friends of the Cathedral, which has been hugely successful and culture changing, I don't want any of the Friends of the Cathedral to unwittingly be put at risk. All right? So, any extraneous events that aren't about worship, because we've got no directions from the House of Bishops, I've pulled back on. And I have said, we normally share the cup of communion, right? We stopped that. We stopped the sign of peace. And we're going to say, if you come to church, you sit far apart from each other. You actually keep that social distance from each other. There's enough space everywhere to do it, so that's not an issue. The main thing I want to do, we have an email set up with the parishioners. The majority of parishioners I contact every single week online. They get the readings and they get the news of the week. So twice or three times a week now, I'm giving them updates. We're pulling this, and this. And without exception, the response has been, thanks for minding us. I just emphasise two things. People are smart, right? If you have a fever, don't, under any circumstance, go to church, please. It's not just about your welfare, it's others. It just may be a cold, but it may not. So if you have any fever, don't go to church. And the second thing, people know their own health situation without me deciding, and people are smart. And I basically said, if you have any doubts about your own welfare or the welfare of a vulnerable member of your family, like if I'm living with somebody who's on dialysis, I don't need to bring the virus home to them, because that's a game changer for them, right? So people have to make their own decisions. So I've said, if you have any doubts, stay away. Now, in response to all of that, Trevor and I have divided up the parish list, and we are going to ring every household at least. We're going to try and aim that every single household will be contacted by phone every week. So we will keep contact with people. We are devising ways of, if the churches are closed, that we will maintain worship online with people. We will have Facebook time with people who are living alone. We will have WhatsApp with people who are living alone. So if there is a lockdown, we've thought it through. You're not going to be on your own. Trevor and I are at the end of a line. Ring us, middle of the night, any time, just ring us. So the big thing for us is community connection and personal responsibility. So we're trying to respect people's intelligence, first of all, give them the information that we have, do what we can, but essentially really remain connected as a community.
I know there's a difference between the Church of Ireland and the Catholic Church in terms of numbers, and it may not be possible for the Catholic Church to do some of the things that you've suggested. But I highly commend what you're doing. I think it's excellent. I think it's very proactive, and it's setting out certain, I suppose, procedures that may well help limit the spread of this virus. Because, as you say, a lot of people that go to church would be in the more vulnerable age brackets. We've contacted the Diocese of Waterford regarding the Catholic Church. We hope to have Father Liam Power on. I'm surprised personally that there hasn't been some statements regarding interaction with churches and the Catholic Church. Do you think there's a possibility that services within Church of Ireland will be suspended?
Yes. I haven't the authority to so do, but I do think so.
If you had the authority, would you do it now?
Yes, I would. With a very hard heart. We'll say a heavy heart. I have a huge duty of care to the people with whom I live and serve. They matter immensely to me. I don't want them in any way compromised. At the same time, I must, with my team, make sure they know they're not cut loose from a community.
Yes.
So we have to be really smart and imaginative and do different ways. I do not think people's faith is dependent on church or church attendance. I've never held that view.
No.
I think the Church of Ireland is divided into 3 different groups. Those who find church very nourishing and go weekly, the occasionals and the rites of passage people, and the third who very much buy into the belief system and the value system but who are not churchy. But if you suggested they weren't Church of Ireland, they'd kill you.
Speaking of death, funerals, the association of...
I read it.
Did it make you angry? Did it make you think, OK, there might be something in this? If somebody dies, if some member of the Church of Ireland dies this week, what will happen?
If somebody dies this week, I will give them a Christian burial. I will leave the doors of the cathedral open and I will give them all the funeral rites as arranged with their family, to the honour of that family and to the comfort of that family. The people who come to that funeral, it is their personal decision if they come or don't. If they come, I will still maintain sanitisers at the door, keep us separate from each other, no physical contact with each other.
You don't agree with this idea of not having a funeral?
I think funerals are hugely important for the family. They're not for the dead. They're with God. They're at peace. Those who have died are at rest. But as communities and as priests, we want to love and support families in times of crisis and hold them as gently and respectfully as we can. And the rituals of funerals are hugely important in the leave-taking. I know it because I'm half Swedish, and when my brother died, it took 6 weeks for my brother to be buried in Sweden. That's usual. It's like 2 weeks in England, which we find very hard. Try 6 weeks in Sweden. It is a complete headbender. And until my brother was laid to rest, we were in this awful no man's zone. It's like people waiting for an autopsy or waiting for a body to be found at sea. And then when they can put their beloved one to rest.
But you also have a responsibility, as you've outlined, to your congregation and to your... So there may well be a situation that might change.
Though if a situation changes and there's an absolute shutdown from a legal point of view, Maria Jannsen will still bury the dead.
Dean, Maria, thank you very much. Now, thank you everybody for your texts and your comments. All I can say regarding that interview with Dean Maria is she left me speechless. Christy has texted in, Damien, what a lovely lady. She speaks so much sense. Damien, I was in church on Sunday and there was no holy water, no sign of the peace, but they didn't hold back on passing the collection box around. Damien, I've just found a couple of good recipes for hand sanitisers on the net, easy to make, cheap, basically tea tree oil, aloe vera and witch hazel mixed together. Damien, Dean Maria and Trevor are marvellous what they're doing, very proactive. Another person, I think I might convert to the Church of Ireland. Kevin has texted in, Damien, is it not time for the government to come clean and tell the public which areas are affected and stop pussyfooting around with this north, south, west idea? Damien, would it be a good idea to have people checking on the streets for the virus in terms of testers? Damien, we need a lot more testers. There's only 60 testers, as you said correctly earlier. There should be at least 500. Damien, what about the hurling league matches at the weekend? Councillor Jason Murphy, Damien, I've just had an elderly gentleman on to me. He's extremely worried about the coronavirus. He has underlying health issues and is self-isolating. He's just been told by a local supermarket that he has to order his shopping online, but they won't take an order under €50. He's not online, and many elderly people and wouldn't be able to afford over €50. Anybody, any help that they can tell that person? I think that would be good. And we will see how that goes. Damien, just listening to the interview with the Mulligans rep there, don't know if it's correct to say that children can't get COVID-19. Yes, we have corrected that. We have a granddaughter with cystic fibrosis, and we're getting info from the Cystic Fibrosis Society to be particularly careful with her so she doesn't pick it up. I know the elderly are at risk, but so are children with underlying conditions. That is in from Alan. And Alan, as I said earlier, there is a correction to that. Kate had said that what she meant was what the BBC had said, that children at the start don't get the symptoms as hard, as heavy. But yes, children can catch the coronavirus. The youngest cases have been only days old. There's very little information on the symptoms of COVID-19 in children, but they appear at present to be mild. Fever, runny nose and a cough. Fever, runny nose and a cough. So we will keep an eye on that. Damien, some places are pushing up the cost of hand sanitisers, ridiculous amounts of money, and making money out of this. Keep your texts and your comments coming in. Thank you, WLR, for all your help on all these matters. You're doing a great job, Damien, and all the team there in giving out information. Well, thank you. This is what we're going to try and do. And as we know, there's a lot of people that do listen to the radio and look for information regarding this. Damien, brilliant proactive stuff from Maria. Well done to her and to everybody involved in the Church of Ireland, says this texter. Now I think we've got Mary. Is Mary Kelleher on the line? Hello, Mary.
Hello.
How are you getting on, Mary?
I'm good, thank you.
Ah, good. Where are you? Are you in Mulligan, you are?
That's right, yes.
And lovely. And what's the weather like there this morning?
The sun is shining now.
Ah, very good.
You're expecting showers.
Expecting a few showers. Very good.
Yeah.
Listen, you're very good. It's lovely to talk to you, Mary. Fair play to you. And it's nice and relaxed. So just take it nice and easy. And if you get a few right, brilliant. If you get a few wrong, no big deal. Isn't that it?
Okay.
So nice and relaxed, you'll be absolutely fine. And thank you so much for calling in to us. I really appreciate it. It's lovely to talk to people in Mulligan especially, and Turanina and all, especially down the west. So it's lovely to talk to you. So you're going to answer a few questions. And if you don't know the answer, just say pass, OK?
Okay.
And see how you get on, and we'll see what happens. I know Vanessa from Kilkenny this morning, she got 6. So we'll see.
Gee.
Well, don't worry, you wouldn't know. No pressure at all. You know, like some of them, as Larry Gogan used to say, sometimes they suit you, sometimes they don't. So what I'll do is I'll play the 30-second countdown underneath you, and then you can see how you get on. Does that sound okay?
Okay.
OK, so just listen nice and slowly, and you can answer as quick as you can. And if you don't know the answers, just say pass. OK?
Okay.
OK, here we go. And everybody listening can also have a little listen as well. Here we go. 30 seconds. What are vertebrates that live both underwater and on land called?
Pass.
What is the main colour of the United Nations flag?
Blue.
What type of food are black-eyed peas?
Beans.
The game of shinty originates in what country? Shinty, where does it come from?
Scotland.
What's 16 divided by 4?
4.
What county, and I've started so I'll finish, what county is Mallow in? Where is Mallow?
Cork.
Cork, well done.
County Cork.
Super, well done. I'll tell you, you did very well, Mary. You got 5 right. The only one you didn't get right was the first one, the vertebrates that live both underwater and on land. It's a difficult one, actually. They're called amphibians. It's one of those ones that you get stuck on. But you got the other word. Blue is United Nations, black-eyed peas, beans is correct, shinty is Scotland, 16 divided by 4 is 4, and Mallow is Cork. So you got 5 right, which is really, really good, but it's not, unfortunately, as good as what Vanessa got this morning. But I'll tell you, that's one of the best scores we've had all week.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And do you want to say hello to anybody, Mary?
I just want to say hello to all my relatives and friends that are listening to WLR this morning.
Lovely. And you are Mary Kelleher from Mulligan. And Mary, thank you so much for getting in touch with us this morning.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. God bless, Mary. Take care.
Bye,
Take care. Bye-bye. 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 Mary Colligan there. Mary Kelleher from Colligan on line 2. Keep your texts and your comments coming in. 083 333 975. Now, in a minute, I am going to be talking to Elaine about careers. Life goes on, as they say, in terms of many other aspects of news. We'll come to that in a minute. Frank has texted in, Damien, if any elderly person wants shopping done, I can help out through all the correct procedures. I think what you're going to see is you're going to see an awful lot of communities coming together. You're going to see a lot of people helping out others. You're going to see the best of people in so many respects. You may see some instances where people are not very well behaved, possibly when it comes to shopping, but I think it's going to bring out a lot of good in people. Other people are saying, can some of the counsellors go and do some of the shopping for some of those people? Damien, can you clarify some of the symptoms, please? One piece of information says you don't have a runny nose. Another place says you do. Does the cough stay as a dry cough or does it turn chesty? Again, the experts are the people to do this. The best information that we have here is that the principal symptoms of COVID-19 are headaches, dry coughs, shortness of breath, muscle pain and fever. Now, obviously, if the cough develops into certain ways, it may well develop with phlegm into a wet cough, as they call it, but it's a dry cough principally at the start. And other people talking about what happens in terms of who are more seriously affected by the different at-risks. Damien, am I what called at an at-risk group? I'm an asthmatic. I also have COPD. But the range of information I can access in Ireland is shortage of breath, and a cough is normal for me. Yes, we have had people on from the COPD associations, and that's a very, very good point. My understanding is people with severe asthma and COPD are classified as being in the higher risk groups. Damien, just listening to the interview with the pharmacist and the idea of taking money, the hospital still insists that you pay your parking with cash. My understanding is no plan to upgrade to a cashless machine, something this should be done now, currently in this crisis. I'm going to go to Elaine because she's waiting on the line for us. Elaine, good morning.
Good morning, Damien. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for joining us this morning. We've had a busy programme this morning, and I know it's going to get busier. You are from Lismore, is that correct?
That's correct. We've made our home in Lismore. We're here 13 years now. 13 years.
Yeah. And the CAO applications and the trends that we have been looking at in the last 24 hours, the courses in law, education and STEM subjects have seen a massive increase in applications this year, have they?
Absolutely. And you'll find, I suppose, trends are really, some things are off trends and some things are on trends. But certainly what I would generally find is that if you have students, or even actually it can often be about if there's economic certainty or change or uncertainty, or the media will have an awful lot of influence in terms of the perception of various courses. So certainly STEM is still popular. The ones that are consistently, I suppose, always up there, Damien, are the health courses are always there. Business and administration is always very popular. And the arts courses is one of the biggest programs in the country. It has a flat sort of performance in terms of, it doesn't really move up or down much, but it is one of, I guess, there's so many options within an arts course programs. Humanities is very important because what humanities does, if this is something that is of interest to students, it helps people develop critical analysis skills, which are very important. And language skills are also in high demand from employers. So you will generally find that when in times of uncertainty, I think parents generally try and encourage or steer their children towards things, careers, professions that are seen as stable.
Yes.
Because we're all, I guess, looking for, even the conversations that you've been having in the last couple of hours, it's all around where can we find some stability, where can we find some certainty, where can we find some safety. So I think that's often what happens in terms of those trends. ICT courses are popular, but they're not, as much as there's a huge amount of growth in those areas of computer-based courses and skills, they do seem to be not much change. Engineering courses were up last year, and I'd imagine they will continue to move up in that direction. So another course that are on trend and had a big significant jump last year was environmental courses. So this interest in climate change and questions around how people can I suppose, get involved in that. There was a big spike last year of upwards of 25% of students had an environmental courses as part of their first preference.
I was looking at that, all right, yeah. Now, obviously, people can reapply and you can change your CAO choice as well. Like, at the minute, the number of applicants for nursing courses dropped 6 to 7%, but that may change as well. You may see
absolutely. There's movement all the time. You know, it's not until, I suppose, those first and then those second round offers are accepted that you can really lock in and see where students are moving and changing and shifting. One thing that I would recommend students not doing is there's a window of opportunity between May and July when you can change your choices, or you can change the order of your choices. And often what I would find is that students come out of the Leave Cert going, oh, I did a bad exam in XYZ. And that reaction, post-Leave Cert reaction, can affect how they change their preferences. They might say something like, oh, there's no way I'm going to get 450. I'm going to go and move my choices around to something that has less points last year. That's a really bad idea, because you're kind of you can have a false read of how you've performed in the tests. And the other thing is that CAO points are all about preference. Preference is so important, because the system is set up so that it will give you as close as it can to your first preference. And I was looking at some statistics from last year, and 53% of Level 8, that's the Level 8 is an honours degree programme, so 53% of Level 8 applicants actually got their first preference. 81% received one of their top 3 choices. So that says to me that students are really being kind of spot on in terms of what they are anticipating getting in terms of the points that they hope to get. They're lining those up then with their choices. But if you can imagine then that you have rejigged your preferences, not to your preferences, but to some other thing in terms of maybe, I won't get that level of points, you will never maybe get potentially your first real preference. So the preference is the really, really important issue that I think we need to kind of emphasise with students and parents all the time.
Elaine, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Elaine McBarron.
Pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Mind yourself. Thanks, Elaine. Elaine McBarron there from Lismore, owner of Careers Compass, on this year's CAO applications and the trends that are being displayed. Damien, I didn't have phone credit yesterday to make a comment on the sulkies. An interesting subject to start with. I must say you dealt with it in a way that didn't insult anyone. Maybe you can come back to it in the future. That's from Ricardo. Yes, I was going to do another piece this morning on it, but we concentrated on the COVID-19 story. Damien, just wondering if you could get someone from one of the supermarket chains to discuss the possibility regarding food and supplies. Is it going to be time like the snow 2 years ago, or is it going to be there for a couple of days? Damien, any money being exchanged in Cheltenham this week, I wonder, giving out about collection boxes being passed around when prayers might be the only way of getting us out of this. Damien, there should be ads constantly on the television throughout the day showing people how to wash their hands and protect the communities. That's from Jim. Basically, Jim also says that there's not enough being done. Damien, there's so much false news being spread, particularly on social media. People need to listen to the experts. Keyboard warriors need to put their phones down and get the bleach out. That is from Jen. Damien, I work in a shop and have sanitisers at the door. The amount of people walking past the sanitisers and not using it is unreal. People need to wake up and use it. And here's a very important question. Damien, if schools are going to close down, if a decision is made next week to close down the schools, what does this mean for things such as confirmation? Will confirmation go ahead? Parents need to know this now, as getting children ready for confirmation is not cheap. The cost of clothes, hair, makeup, venues, etc. As I said earlier, I think we're in unprecedented times. I don't think we've seen a situation like this before. It may not develop into too serious a matter. It may be contained at a certain level, but we just don't know. We just don't know. So as I said, there have been some countries like Taiwan and Poland. Some people have texted in about Poland who have kept the instances down to very low figures. And there's others like Italy that didn't. Keep in touch. 083 333 975. As I say, I may not have got to all the texts and comments today because there just have been literally scores of texts and comments. We're going to keep in touch with patients in the hospital to see what the developments are throughout the day. Keep listening to WLR News. Follow us on Facebook, on Twitter and Instagram for our updates as this situation evolves throughout the day, both locally and nationally. Thanks, Julie, for producing. Thank you, everybody, for texting. Thanks for taking part. We want to hear your stories.